Hi everybody, thank you very much. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. and welcome to another classic movie review. I am talking about a musical that came out in 1952, 50s movie, but in glorious Technicolor, starring the great Gene Kelly, star of An American in Paris, Summer Stock, and On the Town, which was also directed by Stanley Donen, who co-directed this film with Gene Kelly. I'm talking about the great Singing in the Rain, a movie that is hailed as one of the greatest films of all time, as well as being one of the greatest musicals, if not the greatest musical of all time. Now, I am not an authority on musicals, truth be told. In fact, I'm not really the biggest fan of musicals, but there are some musicals that I got to admit I enjoy and are some of my favorite movies. I love The Wizard of Oz. I love, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. But I still don't think that makes me a guy that really is into musicals, because if you put on something like Fame or, like, I don't know, The Sound of Music or something, uh, it's just not my cup of tea. Having said that, this is a movie that I enjoy. I really enjoy the story in this movie. I like movies about Hollywood, especially about old Hollywood. And this movie came out in the 50s, but it takes place in the 20s. And so, here we have Gene Kelly, who came out of like vaudeville, song and dance stuff. This film pays tribute to vaudeville, Broadway, the movies, and show business in general, as we see Gene Kelly's character, Don Lockwood, start out as a song and dance man in a vaudeville act with his best friend. We see Gene Kelly's character start out as a song and dance man in vaudeville with his partner Cosmo Brown, but eventually he decides he wants to be in the movies, and so he works his way to becoming a stuntman. And from being a stuntman, he eventually works his way to becoming a leading man in the silent era. And he meets a woman, Lena Lamont, who is a big starlet. She's played by actress Jean Hagen. And Lena Lamont has eyes for him, but he has eyes for Kathy Selden, played by the great Debbie Reynolds. Even though Don Lockwood is becoming a big star as a leading man, Kathy is still very unimpressed by him, which in turn impresses him all the more when it comes to her. And he notices how talented she is, aside from being quite beautiful, which Lena Lamont, the starlet that he stars in a lot of movies with, she notices that he is taking quite a liking to her, and he doesn't keep it a secret at all. Because Lena Lamont and Don Lockwood play an on-screen couple in a lot of their movies together, Hollywood and the press keeps pushing the narrative that they're a couple in real life, even though that's not really the case, and Don isn't too happy about that. But he has a chance to turn that all around when all of a sudden a shift happens in the business when Warner Brothers announces the release of The Jazz Singer starring Al Jolson. At first, a lot of filmmakers in Hollywood and a lot of people in the business are a bit apprehensive and nervous at the whole concept of their movies all of a sudden having sound and people having dialogue in them. But because of the success of 1927's The Jazz Singer, which in real life did change everything for Hollywood movies, all of a sudden all the studios were trying to play catch up and basically didn't want to get left behind, and so they had to quickly adapt to the situation. And as a fan of film in general, it's really cool to see that depicted in a movie. It's also very amusing for me as a movie lover to see a depiction of filmmakers of the late 1920s creatively coming up with a variety of different methods to achieve their ultimate goal in a successful experience with a movie having sound. And there are a lot of speed bumps along the way. Not everything always works out at first. Of course, a lot of experimenting involved. Aside from being a musical and a story about old Hollywood, this movie is also a comedy. And in that department, I gotta be honest and I gotta say, some of the comedy doesn't land for me. One specific example regarding this for me is the scene where Donald O'Connor's character, Cosmo Brown, is singing a song called Make 'Em Laugh. And ironically, I'm not laughing during this scene because it looks like he's trying way too hard to be funny when we see him throwing himself all around the floor, just falling all over the place, flailing himself around the room. And maybe back in the 50s, audiences were howling in a crowded theater, laughing hysterically, but like a lot of old-timey stuff doesn't age well for modern audiences, this for me is one of those examples of something that kind of just makes me cringe when I watch it regarding some stuff from back in the day when it comes to old stuff. But that's not to say I don't like classic comedy. I love me some Laurel and Hardy, some Marx Brothers. I like Abbott and Costello. I enjoy the Three Stooges, and so I do appreciate classic humor. However, not all of it is going to land for me all the time. But again, there are some moments in the film that are funny, genuinely funny, that come out of the situations in the film that are just naturally humorous. And so, the music in the film is great. A lot of the dancing is great. One thing that absolutely cannot be denied about this film is the greatness of Gene Kelly in the part of Don Lockwood. It is a terrific performance. It is a role that he was born to play. It's a signature role, and some of the dancing in this film is just mind-blowing to watch in terms of how old this film is, because I'm pretty sure that every now and then when I'm watching Gene Kelly up there on screen doing his stuff, I swear I'm spotting some dance moves and some footwork that I have seen Michael Jackson do before on stage, not live, but like in his music videos or like, concert shows. And so, yeah, Gene Kelly was a very talented and influential dancer. And the performance in this film that he gives is full of joy. And when I watch this movie, I find that joy contagious. Debbie Reynolds is also terrific in this film. I also really enjoyed the movie that she did with Dick Van Dyke in the late 60s, Divorce American Style. Very good comedy. And I think she's great in 1996's Mother with Al Brooks. That's one of my favorite comedies from the 1990s. But yeah, all around, this movie does have a very fun vibe to it, has a lot of energy to it. I didn't grow up watching this movie. I watched this movie kind of late in life, and so I don't really have an attachment to it. And because of that, I don't have like this love for it that I'm sure a lot of people have that grew up with the film. But I do appreciate it, I respect it, and I am entertained by it because I enjoy classics and I enjoy stories about Hollywood, especially old Hollywood. And so I give this movie 3.5 stars, which I'm sure is sacrilege to a lot of people that love this movie, since a lot of people think it's one of the greatest films of all time. Who am I to dispute that? Those of you out there that know me know that I gotta have my hard copy. You know that I'm all about physical media. And so I got my DVD of Singing in the Rain right here. This is one of the older DVDs. You can tell by the little plastic flap here that Warner Brothers used to release back when they released the first DVDs back in like 1997 is when they first started coming out in my neck of the woods. But this is one of the iconic shots here of Gene Kelly hanging on that lamppost there with his umbrella, Singing in the Rain, 1952. Thank you all so very much for watching this classic movie review. I always appreciate you. If you're into the classics, if you're into movies, if you're into this kind of thing, if you're new to the channel, hit the bell, become a subscriber. Please don't forget to comment, share, like, always helps me out. If you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for supporting the channel. I very much appreciate it. Till next time, everybody, peace out, take care, and God bless.